Live stream, and we are live, and welcome to the Thursday live Facebook here on effective communication and relationship building. I'm here with my partner in crime, Lee Garland, and co-author, bon vivant, and man about town.
Oh, that's fun.
And we're fresh from our resounding tour of the Salinas Active Senior Inc. Center, where we gave a talk at their monthly luncheon, and it went very well, I think.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, one of the things that they seem particularly interested in, we talked about how this idea of you never have to have another argument. And what if that were possible? What if that were really possible? And I know if you're listening to this, there's probably a part of you that's thinking, yeah, right. You know, you don't know my partner. You don't know my boss. You don't know, they're just too difficult. And
yeah. And that's what we were engaging with the audience today. It was about 100 plus seniors there, and we asked the idea, what if you didn't ever have to argue ever again, ever, under any circumstances, for any reason? And there was this kind of dull look of, what?
Yeah. And you know, and maybe you're thinking of that too, and it you know, and it makes sense to be skeptical about that, because we've lived maybe for many years, or maybe some decades for some of us, you know, with constant, you know, arguing and the thing that the point that you brought up, Lee, that is so important is that not arguing does not mean that there's no conflict. And, you know, one way to not argue is to just kind of walk away. And I know that's that in certain circumstances, that may be the best thing. I mean, again, we're talking about, you know, a normal range of behavior here. We're not dealing with a situation that's abusive. If you're in an abusive situation, yes, you know, get help, get out. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a relationship which is, you know, normally, you know, okay, you know, maybe it's a little bit on the rocks, but it's not abusive. But the way that so many of us deal with conflict is to have arguments and fights.
Yeah. One woman today, as we were signing books at the end, she comes up and she says, well, you know, I have a fiery temper, and you know, with my husband, it's either I shut up and put up with it, or I just fight like heck. And I said, and so those two solutions are working for you? Well, not really. I said, so maybe you're looking for another approach. And she said, yeah. I said, so maybe you're going to buy a book. And she did, and we talked about it for a while. And I said, you know, perhaps you can consider the idea that maybe there's another avenue, rather than having to give in and walk away and go into numbness, or, you know, basically severing the relationship is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or having to fight and having to be the winner. There having to be a winner and a loser. That was another thing that we talked about today is, oh my gosh, what would it be like to not have to have a winner or a loser?
Yeah.
What would it be like if you knew right now, what if you just decided to know that you matter, that you belong, and that you're enough as a starting place?
Yeah.
I matter, I belong, and I'm enough right now. And if Arnie, we had some fun doing some role play, which maybe we'll do on the video today, some role play about, you know, having disagreements or having some difference of opinion doesn't have to be an argument.
Exactly. And actually, another woman mentioned a book, and I've seen a number of books with this title or thing, how to fight fair, or how to fight. And to me, that's what we're offering is, what if you didn't have to fight at all? The best way to fight is to not fight. and and you don't have to walk away, you don't have to disconnect. The beauty of tracking is that it allows you to maintain that connection. It allows you to validate what's going on for the other person in what they're saying and what they're feeling, and just basically what is going on for them. And the meta message of that, just to kind of build on what you were saying, Lee, the meta message to that is you are also conveying to this other person that they are enough.
That
You're
they matter.
saying that they
and that
matter.
They belong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a mutual thing. It's not like I matter, I belong, and I'm enough, and you're not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm okay. You're a pain in the butt.
Right, right. Well, and what you were just saying, Arnie, too, about tracking as being validating.
Yep.
There was some confusion, or not confusion, but there was some furrowed brows about the idea of validating, that somehow that means, oh, well, that means I have to be wrong and you have to be right.
Yeah.
And we said, wait a second, where did we ever say that? That's antithetical to what we're saying, is that for me to validate some thought or sensation or feeling or opinion that you have does not take away from me at all.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why don't you want to role play that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to do the one that we?
Sure. I'll be the problem. I'm always the problem child. One of the things we did, which, and this comes from my background of doing improv, was that we like to get suggestions from the audience, because that way they know that we're not just sort of making something up. This is really what's going on. And the suggestion was, a woman said, well, how about the checking account? Problems with I said, okay, let's do that. So let's do that, Arnie. So I have a problem checking account, and I'm going to come to Arnie with no skills, with no ability to handle what effective communication is. I'm just pissed off about the checkbook, and that's it. And so, Arnie, maybe you do what we did today, is to react without any skills at all. Just have an argument. Let's have an argument. What does an argument look like? Yeah. Okay. Well, so here's the checkbook, and it's $25 overdrawn.
Yeah, you're always on my case about this. That $25, that's nothing.
Yeah, but that's overdrawn. That means we have no money for rent. We have no money for the car payment. Are you kidding? You can't just write checks willy-nilly.
Well, I needed to do that. I mean, if you just made some more money, then we wouldn't have to do this.
Oh, it's all about me and the making money. Hey, look, all I'm asking is that I get informed, that I know what's coming out of the account. I never know what's coming out of the account.
Well, so I mean, so what am I supposed to ask you every time I want to buy some little, pack of gum or something? Is that,
So this goes on
Yeah.
and on and on and on.
Until
Now,
one of us gives up and storms off.
Right. The end of the argument is always an FU or something, rude like that.
Fine,
or it's
fine.
Whatever. Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Right. So, okay. Let's do it now with skills. What is this idea of validating and or tracking? What does that look like? How do you manage that when somebody like me is coming at you pissed off? So
the important, it gets back to the aware, loving heart. I mean, this is a relationship that's important, and somebody who's very important to me is upset about something. That's the most important thing. And the other thing is that I'm okay. I'm enough. If I'm in my aware, loving heart, then I don't make Lee wrong. I don't make Arnie wrong. Nobody's wrong, and feelings are neither right nor wrong. So if Lee's upset, then he's upset. That's not. There's nothing wrong about that. And I may have a different opinion about the checkbook, but that is less important as the fact that somebody who I care deeply about is is having some very strong feelings.
Yeah.
And I want to validate, it's not that I'm just I don't want to just go with the feelings. I also want to address what's being said too. So that's, so tracking I'm just walking the walk with them and not taking it personally.
Yeah. And also, as we do this example of what it looks like with skills, notice that Arnie will not also be sort of like using the skills to still try to be the winner and make me the loser. It's like that idea of noticing, oh, I really care about this person.
Mhm.
And if you really expand that concept of being enough, being mattering and belonging, all of a sudden that expands the landscape of the people you actually care about.
Yeah.
You can't walk around saying, well, I don't care about that person. I don't care about those people. I don't care about this, because, well, wait a second. What about, do you care about you? Do you care about what your thoughts are? And if you do care about what your thoughts are, it's likely you care about what other people's thoughts are, because you belong, you matter, and you're enough.
Indeed.
So coming from that place. So I'm going to come at Arnie, and I'm pissed off about the checkbook. Dang it, Arnie! There's another $25 check written, and the checking account's bouncing.
So that's really troubling you.
But yeah, absolutely. You have to let me know when you're going to write a check.
So this caught you completely by surprise then.
No, actually, you know what? It didn't. You do this all the time. You did this last week. You did it last month. I've had to deal with this for years and years.
So this has been happening a long time, and you're fed up with it. You want to find a way to have it not happen again.
Listen to that, gentlemen and ladies. Listen to that. Just listen to that. Was Arnie wrong? Look at him. Is he affected? Is he hurt by this? He's just telling you what's going on. Now, inside of me over here, I'm thinking, well, wow, something's different. Something's happening here. There may be some potential for change here. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of keep pushing, and I'm going to say, well, you always say that you're going to change, but you never do.
So then you want to be assured that any agreements are going to be kept.
There you go. Now that's a gentle challenge,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen. He's gently challenging my assertion that he will never do the thing.
Mhm.
And he's just doing it in a gentle way. Say it again, Arnie. You want to be
So
assured.
you want to be assured that agreements are going to be kept.
And he didn't say that I will keep agreements.
Yeah.
You're not making yourself wrong.
Right.
You're just saying that agreements, we want to make sure agreements are being kept. And I can say, darn right. And you've been the worst at it. And I can't, and I'm not standing for one more bounce check.
So you want the account always to stay above water.
Absolutely. How hard is that?
So you really want that to happen, and it hasn't been happening now, and you want to find a way to make sure that it never happens again.
Did you see how he never? I may be throwing the hook out there, but he never gets hooked. He never allows the hook to lodge. It's like, who's the one that's upset here?
Yeah.
I am the one that's upset. Okay, perhaps right now I'm the one that needs the attention.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe I need some attention. Maybe I had a terrible day at work. Maybe the fact that the check bounced had some other meaning to me than it does to Arnie. But the only way that Arnie is going to find out is if he validates and tracks it.
Yeah. And notice that we're not at the point. Yeah, there's obviously some kind of problem here that needs to be solved, because the bouncing checks and not having enough money for rent is definitely a problem that it affects me as well. So, it's quite possible that I have I've maybe placatedly in the past and said, oh yeah, sure, I'll do it, and then just kind of gone on my merry way. So what this really needs is an outcome that's gonna work, that's gonna be stable, that's gonna work for Lee and gonna work for me. But we're not at that point yet. And we're not gonna reach that point until we're both kind of in a place where we're working together to solve the problem. And again, we're not there yet. As long as one of us is still upset, then that's not a time to be trying to solve problems. And it's not a time, it's not even a time for me to be trying to give solutions.
Right. And that's what we did at the luncheon today. I said, well, go ahead and try and give me, try and solve this now. And
Yeah.
let's see how that goes. So I said something like, yeah, these checks have got to stop. They have all got to clear. We can't have bounce checks.
So we'll have it, okay, so now I'm not, this isn't tracking. So,
Right.
well, okay, how about we just kind of review the checkbook every evening?
Right.
I'm
So
offering a solution, but that,
and how does that land for you guys in Facebook land?
yeah,
It's like, okay, well, that sounds really hollow. Like, I don't think I can believe that.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to do that. So if I say, all right, well, we'll do that, well, then I'm giving up. So that's the point of Arnie, is like he's staying engaged with me. That's engaging with our aware, loving heart. By backing off, blaming, shaming, minimizing, deflecting, denying, all that stuff, that's the opposite of engaging. To stay with me while I'm showing some energy, we'll call it. In this particular case, I'm showing some frustration and some anger.
sure, yeah.
Just think of it as energy. So let's let it go a little further and let Arnie kind of bring me down a bit. And so he says, so you want to be assured that the checking account is going to remain above water. Yeah. I say, yes. And you're the one that has to let me know and stop writing bad checks.
Oh. So then you have an idea of how this could be solved.
Yes. Yes. So how it's going to be solved is that I will manage the checkbook. What? That's the only thing I can think of. I'll manage the checkbook.
So then you no other solution comes to mind.
Well, not that I can think of. I don't know. I don't know.
So
what he did right there, hang on just a second. What he did right there is another version of tracking and validating. Was he remained quiet. He allowed my upset to hang out with me without having to engage constantly.
Yeah.
That is a form of engagement, and that's a form of engaging from the aware, loving heart, as opposed to engaging from a defensive, deflective position.
Yeah, and that it's a little more effective when we're actually face to face rather than here in Zoom land, because it's body language and so staying engaged, even without talking, allowing the processing. And and the thing is that now at this point we're sort of transitioning into trying to find a solution to the presenting problem. And what's different is that we're now working on it together in a way. So it's like the problem is not between us, the problem is kind of here, and we're facing the problem together.
Yeah. And you're not taking on any of my sort of energy as being like about you, or that I think you're terrible, or that you're, well, the thought may be Arnie's terrible. That may be my thought. And does that make Arnie terrible? That's a real question. If someone is thinking something, because we're always worried about, well, I'm worried about what they're thinking. Good Lord. Good luck. You're going to spend your whole life just crazy. So it's, so what if somebody is thinking something? They'll think something different 5 minutes from now. Don't worry. It's like the weather in Arizona. Wait 5 minutes and it'll change.
Exactly.
No, not Arizona, but
well, but yeah. So so the beauty of the other thing about tracking in this setting is that I'm not trying to calm Lee down. even though I have confidence though that if I continue to track and validate from my aware loving heart, that the energy will come down. But that's not the prime objective. My prime purpose here is to validate what Lee is saying and thinking and feeling. That's the only thing. What we have discovered throughout our work with this is that when somebody is being heard and validated, it's almost impossible to keep that energy up. It's actually easier, ironically, it's easier in demonstrations where you're kind of making something up. But if the feelings are genuine and the other person is just really validating them, it is really hard to stay so angry when the other person is just getting you.
Yeah, it is. One other thing that happened today at the luncheon is there was a person who wanted to respond with, yeah, but I have a problem that's unsolvable. It's the yeah, but approach.
Yeah.
And Arnie, you were wonderful with this person where you just immediately, what Arnie did was in the middle of the luncheon with 100 and some odd people in the room, you just tracked her in that moment.
Mhm.
You said, you've really come up against something that has been unsolvable.
Mm.
And you should have seen her body. I wish everyone on the screen could have seen her body. Her body just went, yeah. It was just like this whole, oh my gosh, somebody heard me. Even though, I mean, it wasn't resolved,
Sure.
but it was like just in that moment to be heard in that moment. It was a great example, Arnie. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and our wonderful teacher Selwa was a great modeler of that. What I noticed that in her work, when she was teaching this in her workshops, many times there'd be somebody who was just skeptical, say, oh, this doesn't work, blah, and rather than pushing back against that. And again, I remember looking at that and thinking, oh, this jerk, what's he doing? He's taking a communication class and he's going, and so of course she didn't do that. She would just go up and she would track him and validate him. And, it was just, my jaw hit the floor the first time I saw this happen.
You bet. Yeah, she would say things like, so there's no solution here.
Yeah.
It's just so great. It's like
Yeah.
completely validating, and you would never think to say that. And
Yeah.
if you said it without skills, you might say something, so I have no solutions here.
Yeah.
And so that's the saying it without skills. So saying it with skills is, so there's no solution here. Notice that the voice comes down. It's not bringing the energy up. It's just bringing it. I'm not being like a therapist. So there's no solution here. I'm not doing that. I'm staying with, notice also when Arnie's talking to me about the checkbook, his energy is pretty up. It's not sort of, well, then you're looking for another solution,
Yes.
which would just drive you crazy.
Yeah. And how does that make you feel?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Ah.
So what Arnie just did was he asked a question. And in tracking, how can you validate someone by asking them a question? Just think about that. How could asking someone a question validate them? I actually can't think of a way that it would. I'm sure that there's plenty of skeptics that'll come up with exceptions to the rule. Let's just suffice it to say that a statement is, from our perspective, is the most effective approach.
Mm.
So a statement, and one of the, we talk about two magic words with making statements. One of them is maybe, and the other one is perhaps.
Mm.
The other one that you shared today, Arnie, when you're first starting with validating and tracking, the magic words are so you. To start off when listening and validating someone, they say, I don't, you didn't wash the dishes. And to start off with, so you are looking for another solution for the dishes, whatever. Start off with so you. The maybe and perhaps is really a great way to do something called a gentle probe, which is a kind of a question without asking the question.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're looking for another solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as opposed to, are you looking for a solution what are you looking for, a solution? So some magic words.
Yeah.
So you, maybe, and perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps this is something that needs to be discussed.
Yeah. And what they do is those words kind of soften the whole thing. You know, and the reason that can be really useful is that we tend to kind of push back against things, and the more that you kind of soften, it allows the other person to hear it more easily. And it's not that there are no guarantees. Sometimes people just aren't open to hearing something, but what tracking and gentle probes and these magic words, what they do is they maximize the chances that the other person is going to receive what you're saying.
It allows me, as someone who's responding, it allows me to stay in my loving heart,
Yeah.
which for me is the most satisfying and pleasant place to hang out. Why would I want to hang out in an agitated, combative, confrontive place? The only reason why is because it's familiar somehow.
Yeah.
And we think, oh, I have to be combative. Like the woman who came up to me and said, well, I'm a fiery person. You're not a fiery person. You're just a human being with thoughts and feelings. That's all. But somewhere along the line, she got the information that her opinion made her fiery.
Mhm.
And so now she has to live in that little bubble that she's developed.
Yeah.
And what if you didn't have to live in that bubble? What if I just have a lot of energy?
Yeah. And we don't want to put out anybody's fire by any means. I mean,
True that. True. Thank you.
So you can absolutely do this with a fiery energy. I mean, you can be in your aware heart and be fiery, and because that's one way that, we're alive and, vital. And the thing is that we don't have to make our fire into a flamethrower that burns the other person.
Nice. Nice. That's the name of one of our third books.
Yeah.
You don't have to turn your fire into a flamethrower.
Well, this has been an absolute delight. As always, I got a beautiful chance to spend 2 times with my wonderful friend Lee, talking about my favorite thing, the skills. And until next time, all of you out in Facebook land, thank you for tuning in. And if you're watching the replay on this, be in your aware, loving heart.
Thank you.